All right, let's look at part 4. So we have Link, we have the dragon. We're going to go ahead and create the dragon to fight back at Link. So we're going to create another sprite here. What I want you to do is create a sprite. We're going to call this Fireball. And I want you to make sure you download the sprite sheet Fireball from the resources. We're going to edit the sprite, and we're going to create from strip. And it's right here, Fireball sprite sheet. And so here we have a, this is an example of a very consistent sprite sheet that we should be able to import all of this if we get all the stuff right. So we just got to figure out the numbers correctly here. So there is 4 rows with 6 images in each row. So we're going to say 24 images. We're going to put 6 images in each row. Then we have to figure out the image width and height. So let's see if 100 by 100 works. So now we're getting closer. Now notice also that you guys probably don't have this, but the horizontal separation and the vertical separation. So I'm just trying to get one fireball in here, and then you can add this offset here. So horizontal separation, if I add, I'm going to add 35 to that, and I can see this is getting pretty good. I'm going to add 35 to the other one as well. See if I can possibly get all the fireballs into one thing here. So that looks pretty good. Maybe I'll make this 34, maybe even 33. I mean, as long as we get them all in there, because we're going to crop this anyway, it should be pretty good. So there we have it. I'm going to say okay on this. And now take a look at what we created. So that was very efficient. We have 24 images. I'm going to crop this. So we're going to hit Control-Alt-P, and we're going to say OK to trim this up a little bit. And it's still not doing a great job of cropping it. I wish it was a little bit better, but that's okay. We'll leave it as is. And I think that's it. If we wanted to make this smaller, because in our game, this is probably going to be pretty massive. So maybe we also try to scale this down, right? So we're going to go to Transform, and we're going to resize the canvas. Let's try. Ooh, that took down the canvas size. That actually helped. I didn't expect that, but that actually helped out, got rid of some of the unnecessary canvas on the outer sides. But what we really want to do is go to scale, and we can make this a little bit smaller, right? So maybe we'll try that. Maybe cut it in half. Make, not 400, like 50. And then when you do this, you want to apply to all sprites. So let's say that size is good. I'm going to try to trim this again, see if we can crop this down a little bit. And that helped. So now we have this fireball. Again, not much work on our part. We just created a sprite sheet, and we were able to import it pretty nicely. And that's a pretty decent animation that we have. So we're going to say OK on that. And say, we'll click on center here to make sure that center is in there, and say OK. From there, let's go ahead and make an object for the fireball. So create object, obj fireball, select the sprite, and add event on create. And on the create, we're going to go ahead and, instead of moving a fixed, we're going to go ahead and try this one right here, which is moving towards. So we'll say that whenever the fireball is created, it's just going to move towards the main character. It's going to move towards us. So we have to say, basically move towards which X and move towards which Y. So we have to put those numbers in there. So what we want to do is we want to figure out what the object link, what that X and what that Y is. So what we can do is we can actually access that by just typing in the object and accessing one of its variables directly. So I'm just going to do the name of the object, which is obj link, and I'm going to say dot. The dot operator is typically accessing one of the variables of another object. So I'm going to say dot x, and I'm going to say obj underscore link dot y, and let's make this a speed of 10. And we're going to say OK on that. So let's go back to, so we're going to say OK on the fireball, and we're going to go to the dragon. And what I think we're going to do here is inside the step event, we're going to create an instance of, we want to shoot a fireball. In this case, we'll make it a little bit more sophisticated. So what I want to do is make a dragon shoot at the main character, or shoot at Link, if we get, let's say, within a certain distance of the main character. So with that, I just Googled and looked at some of the documentation here, and there is a function here, or a procedure that we can use called distance to object, and there might be a button there for it too on GameMaker. We could also do it by hand, but since it already has a function, we're going to go ahead and use that. So distance to object, this is a function, and here's the syntax of it. It says distance to object. In parentheses, we'll write in which object we want to check the distance to, and it will give us a certain number back. So distance to object. So what I'm going to do here is, if we look in the dragon, loop right here, the game loop, we have all these, I guess, dice rolls to change its direction and stuff like that. What I want to do is check to see if I'm close, if the dragon is close to Link. So if we go to control, and we just need to write an expression. You can use this little, you could also just use the code as well, but let's use this question mark, which is just a button it just says test expression. Essentially, it's an if statement, and we can write in an expression here, a Boolean expression that will be like true or false. So I'm going to write in this code. So I'm going to say that function, distance to object, I think it was what it was called. If we go, distance to object, and then in parentheses, we're going to say which object we're checking. So the name of our object's obj underscore link. Okay, so that's going to be the correct way to call this, and that's going to return, or that's going to become a number. We're going to say, what's the distance to Link? And this whole expression, you can think about, is just going to turn into a number. It's going to tell us, well, it's 50 pixels away. It's 100 pixels away. Now we want to ask a question, so we want to say, the distance to object, let's check if that's within, or let's say less than, so use the less than symbol, and we can have some sort of threshold here. So I'm going to go ahead and say, like, test out 200, right? And we could always come back and change this. But here's my expression. I'm going to say distance to object, distance to Link. Is that less than 200? Am I within 200 pixels of the main character, of Link? If so, we're gonna say okay. We're gonna test that expression. If so, I'll put in my blocks. I'm gonna create a fireball. So we're going to go to objects. We're going to go inside here and just say object fireball. This would be relative because we're going to create this instance relative to the dragon. So we'll say OK there. And let's test the code. Now, if this does work, it's probably going to spam the fireball because let's say we're close to the dragon. This step function is going, remember this step function is looping constantly. It's going so I'm expecting to see like if this actually is triggered, there's probably going to be a bunch of fireballs coming at me. But we just want to see if the concept works and we want to test often. We don't want to wait too long to test here. We probably should make it so that there's more dragons in our world so we don't have to waste time. Oh, it looks it looks like it's working. Cool. So there's a dragon. If I get close to the dragon enough, you can see it starts shooting, and it starts shooting a lot of fireballs at us. And the fireballs, of course, aren't doing anything. We probably don't want to spam the fireball little method there, but that gives us confirmation that at least this is working, right? Checking to see if we're close to link. So if we're close to that target, we're going to say that we anger the dragon, and it starts shooting at us. So let's get out of this, and let's create, or let's make it so that we don't spam, this instance constantly. So, all right, so we're gonna have to keep track of a variable here if we want to do this. So if we are close, if I go into this expression, basically this right here is going to say if we're close to link, or if we're within 200 pixels of link, and we want to add another condition. We want to say and the time is up, or we're not shooting right now, then go ahead and shoot another fireball, something like that. So we could put this is gonna get a little complicated because we could put an and in here. We haven't talked about an and, but an and condition in programming is this double ampersand. I'm just gonna do this through just putting another if statement within the if statement. So we call this nesting. So I'm gonna say I'm actually gonna get out of this, and I'm gonna say, so if we're within, if we're close to link, and then we have the start of this block, I'm going to put another if statement in here. So I'm going to go back to control, and we can either just do this, question mark, which is another Boolean, type of if statement. We could also just simply test a variable now, because I'm just going to test some kind of variable. Either one of these is going to be equivalent to what I'm going to do. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to use the question mark because I just used that before. I'll just do it again. So I'm going to put another one in here, and I'm going to say, now I need to create a variable, right? So I should have a variable for dragon that's called is shooting or something like that. And I have to create that still. So I'm going to write an expression that just says, assuming that we have a variable called is shooting, that's what I'm going to name the variable. So is shooting equal to, now normally if you did this variable button, you wouldn't have to write this syntax in here at all, but if you're going to check if two things are equal, you actually have to put a double equals. In programming, you have to go equals equals, because that means something different than just actually changing the value. We're just going to check is shooting equal to false right here. So at least this is the way that I'm thinking about it here. So if the dragon is not shooting and I'm close to link, then I want to go ahead and shoot a fireball. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say I'm going to create more of these blocks here just because now it's indented even further. So it should look like this. And so it's going to say if I'm close to link, and also if I'm close to link, and if I'm not shooting already, well then go ahead and shoot. Now we have to do something with this variable, right? So we're going to create, a fireball right there, and once we create that fireball, we're going to change this variable, is shooting, to true, because then it is shooting. So I'm just going to use this variable button and just do this and say is shooting. I just shot that fireball, so now I'm going to say, it's equal to true. And I have to remember here, I can remember on the last video that this variable, we might have to go, we'll test it, but I'm wondering if I have to put double quotes around this, if it's going to know that this is a Boolean, or if it's going to actually want me to do like text. I think we might be good with true or false here, because it should know what that is. So I'll set it to true. Okay, so then once this is shooting is true, then this expression right here is not going to run. It's not going to keep firing, it's not going to keep firing that fireball. But eventually we want to change is shooting back to false, because otherwise it won't shoot ever again. You know what I mean? So this is where we can use maybe a timer or an alarm. If we go to right here, timing, we can set an alarm. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to set an alarm, and you can choose whatever alarm you want to use. There's a lot of them. There's 11 alarms here. And so we're going to set the alarm, and I'm going to say maybe I'll try 30. 30 is going to be like 1 second. The alarm is only going to be 1 second long. And say OK. So that means that alarm will start ticking down, alarm 0. Once alarm 0 hits down to 0, or that alarm goes off, then I want to change is shooting back to false, because we're going to say that's kind of like the dragon can now shoot again type of deal. So we're going to add an event, and let's go to alarm 0, and here I just want to reset this variable. I want to assign it. So let's go to variables, and we're going to say is shooting now. We're going to say is false. I'm going to say is false there. Okay, so what else do we need to do? What we probably should do if we go to the create is that since dragon has this variable now called is shooting, we probably should initialize it and set it up in the create. So I'm going to do that just to make sure. We're going to go variables. I'm going to put it right underneath this dragon health, and I'm going to say is shooting. We're going to create that variable right away, and we're going to set it to false right away. Okay, so I think we should probably test this. The other thing I want to do here is make more dragons just for testing purposes. So if I go to my controller here, it said 1 out of every 200, create an instance of a dragon. I'm just going to make this like 25, just so that a lot more dragons are going to pop up, just so I can test this. I'll switch it back later. So I'm going to hit play, and we're going to see if this thing works the way that we think it's going to work. We might have to go back to the drawing board. Oop, we're already testing, and it does look like it's working. It's definitely not spamming the fireball. It looks like it's kind of shooting a fireball every second. Kind of waits, and if I'm away from the dragon, it's not shooting, right? If I get close, then it starts shooting at me. So that's kind of what, at least what I'm trying to get at here. And then I can try to shoot the dragon. And of course I'm going to have to do some damage to myself here. Probably put a health bar on there so I can kind of keep tabs on this. So now we're having lots of fun here with lots of dragons. Okay, but that worked, right? And now we're just getting hammered here. That's okay. Okay, so that worked. That's awesome. So we're going to say okay on that. We're going to say okay on all this. And let's go ahead and add some health to Link. So if you go to Link, go in the Create. I like to put all the variables that we have for Link right in the Create in all the objects. So let's create, and here we can use the global health variable if we want, right? This is a case where we can do that. So if we click on score, we can use the score, we can use lives. I'm going to use health, so this is going to allow me to use the main health bar, and I'm going to use this for Link. So I'm going to set Link's health to 100, and then also I need to create a collision. So I'm going to say collision with the fireball. So if the fireball hits Link, we're going to subtract from the health. So I'm going to set the health. We're going to say -10 relative. We're going to say okay. If I collide with the fireball, remember we want to delete things. We want to delete the fireball. So we're going to delete the other. Okay, remember, destroy instance, we want to select other here. We don't want to select self here necessarily because Link might not be dead. So we want to say other. The fireball goes away. And we do want to, well, we can go back to this. We can go back to a lose screen or a win screen or something like that later. Actually, maybe what we'll do is just restart the game because that's easy enough. So why don't we do this just as a simple measure. Let's test. Let's go to score, and we'll test health also in this collision, and we'll say if health is less than, smaller than 0, or maybe smaller than 1, I guess, then we'll just do a simple restart game. Okay, if this was a project of mine, I'd probably go to a lose screen or something like that. But restart game. So that is in, where is it at? That is in main 2, and it's this block right here where we restart the game. I also want to draw the health bar, so let's click on Draw GUI, and we're going to draw the health. A lot of people have had issues with drawing this health bar, and so let's make sure we do it right. We're going to draw the health, and we're going to put it right here. So we're going to, so the health bar, there's 4 things here. There's X1, Y1, there's X2, Y2. So the first thing you want to know is that X1, Y1, you can think of the point of the upper left rectangle of the bar. That's the coordinate. It's going to draw this rectangle, and it's going to start the top left of the rectangle at X1, Y1. So imagine a coordinate system, right? And it's going to start at this coordinate. Then it's going to, the bottom right of the rectangle is going to be X2, Y2. So therefore, X2 is going to be, X2 minus X1 is really going to be the width of this health bar. So I'm going to try making this, we'll just start it at 100, and then Y2 minus Y1 will be like the height of the health bar. So I'm going to make this 5 right now. I'm going to select this relative to Link, which means it's probably going to be right in the middle of Link. but then again, we'll adjust this. A lot of you did this in your games, and some of you didn't, but let's do a quick test of this. Ooh, and let's watch for the health bar. So you can see this health bar is massive. It's a little too big. So I don't want to make it. And we can also see that the dragon is shooting us and we are dying, right? So then we start over. Health bar is too big, so we want to shrink this down, and we want to kind of move it maybe above the character if we want to use a health bar. Of course, you don't have to. So let's get out of this. So this is how you change up the health bar. So we go to link, go to our draw GUI right here. I want to make this a lot less, so I'm going to make this 50. So the width of it's 50. I'm also going to make the height of the rectangle even smaller, maybe make it like 0 to 2. Now this will make the bar smaller, but we still have to draw it above the main character. So if we're going to draw this health bar, if we wanted to make it go up relative to the center of Link, then we have to subtract. If we want it to go up, we're going to subtract from the current y values. So right now, this is at y1 is at 0 and y2 is at 2. If I want everything to be shifted up, I'm going to have to subtract from this. So I'm going to say it would basically be 0 minus however much I want to move it up. So let's say I subtract 50 from that. So then 0 would become negative 50, and y2 would become negative 48. Notice the distance between these two is still 2 pixels. Right? y2 minus y1 is still 2, but it's now going to be shifted up because it's going to look relative to Link, which is like, consider 0, 0 right in the middle of Link. And the coordinate system for GameMaker and a lot of programs is that the y values, if you decrease the y values, you're actually moving up. And that's confusing because normally, like in math class, if you decrease the y values, normally that's going down the y-axis. But the y-axis in GameMaker is really like you have 0, 0, and then if you add to the y, you're moving down. Right? If you add to y, if you subtract from y, you would be going up the y-axis. The x-axis would be, you could think of it as normal. You know, if you add to the x, it's going to go to the right. If you subtract, it will go to the left. So when we think about the x's, I want to move that bar to the left a little bit. Right? So I'm going to, from 0, I have 0 and 50. Let me subtract, because I want it to go to the left, a little bit from there as well. So 0, let's say I subtract 25 from that. That means I'm going to offset it 25 pixels to the left of the center of Link. I'm going to say negative 25. If I go to my x2 and I subtract 25 from this, 50 minus 25 is just 25. Notice again, x2 minus x1 is still 50, right? The width of the bar is still going to be the same, but where it starts to draw the actual health bar is going to be shifted to the left and up. I'm going to say OK on this. I want to do a quick check and make sure this looks somewhat good. We might have to adjust it again, and you can see we kind of did it. I'm just going to leave it like this. If you want to make it look better, you can make it look better. Ooh. Take a look at what is happening. Once I move down, the health bar goes down here. I don't like that, so we're going to have to fix that issue as well. If you take a look, it's probably doing the same thing for you, but if I move down, that health bar is off the screen. And if I move up, the health bar is now kind of at a normal spot. But if I move down, it goes off the screen. So I'm not sure exactly what's happening there. So in order to fix that, it took me a little bit of time to figure this out. I mean, we could not make it relative and just put our health bar on the top left screen and just kind of anchor it there. The fix for this, something messed up with the views, in that there is when we use those views, the view has also an X and a Y. So that was kind of adding too much. Once we got outside of the view, the default view, it would add to the X too much. So here's the fix, basically. So instead of negative 25, we're going to have negative 25, and we're also going to subtract from this and the view of the X. So we're going to say minus view underscore X view. Okay, so it's negative 25 minus view underscore X view. Then you're going to put these hard brackets right here. So like a hard bracket, which is to the right of the letter P. Put a 0 in there, and then end bracket. That's just saying that we're only using view number 0 basically, and we're subtracting off the X value of the view. So don't worry too much about this. I just wanted to fix it. And so what you have to do is for X1, you have to subtract off that minus view X view 0. Same thing to X2 over here. You're going to go, I'm going to copy and paste that, but minus view X view 0. And then for the Y values, we're also going to do the same thing, but it's going to be view Y view, and then for the Y2, same thing, but let's switch this to, again, Y view. Make sure that you type that in correctly. I'm going to say OK on this, and you should go ahead and test it. I've seen this issue happen with other students. And so now when you get outside of that view, the health bar should just kind of stay with you wherever you go. Okay? That's a fix. I wouldn't expect you guys to just know how that works and just do that normally, because we haven't talked about what that is. But again, there's a lot to learn here in GameMaker. A lot of it is in the documentation. I got that from, again, looking at GameMaker documentation, view underscore X view. And as I said in previous videos, make sure you're exploring, looking up GameMaker documentation. You can really learn a lot from just reading, of course, reading the documentation, searching on Google. But that is going to end this part. We're getting towards the end. I think we'll have one more part. That was part 4. We'll see you in part number 5, I believe.